announcing one.
Hello,
Hello.
welcome back. A week, another week,
Another
another
stream.
stream.
Thanks.
We're getting so synced up on that.
We practice.
Yeah, that's actually what we do in the 1 minute countdown, right?
Yeah, we just time ourselves and get that down.
All right, so as we wait for people to come in, for those of you who are here already, we've got a very exciting stream today. We've got yet another extra special guest.
Yep, more guests. And this guy's really cool.
Yeah, we've actually, we've talked about him on stream quite a few times before. We've done a business case with him. Um, he's been using Quinly for a couple months now, and it's uh, made a pretty big impact on his business. And now we'll also be talking about, now that he's used Quinly for a while, how he's going to use it in the future, and how it changes the way um, he designs parts and manufactures parts. So it's going to be a pretty cool, interesting stream, as it
Yeah.
always is, because yeah, we never really know what people are going to use Quinly for. So I'm always very curious to find out how.
Yeah, this guy's got a good few ways that he's using Quinly that I think you guys could learn from. Because he's doing all kinds of, like, he's pushing the limits of what you can do with Quinly. Um, and I think there's some good lessons in here about how to properly set yourself up with, like, all the automation. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely well, we should say his name. His name's Jeremy Owens.
yeah.
I'm gonna bring him on in a second, but yeah, he's went through the whole kind of scale up where he used to just have a single printer, and now he's writing quite a few all automated with Quinly. So yeah, he's gonna share some of his, I guess, how he learned, like what he learned scaling up, and it's gonna be interesting, a really really interesting discussion, I think. So I'll bring
Mhm.
him on. Here's Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy. You're on now.
Hello.
Welcome
Thank
to
you
the
so
stream.
much for coming on.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Um, yeah, why don't you give everyone a quick overview about yourself, what you do, and then we can talk about how you've been using 3D printing over the last couple of months.
So my name is Jeremy Owens. I am a district manager for Matco Tools. Basically, I manage 27 tool trucks in the North Dakota, Minnesota area. Prior to that, I was a distributor for Matco Tools, so I ran one of the trucks. And one of the things that I use Quinly for in 3D printing in general is these displays like in the background of my shot here. And that's kind of where we talk about how basically it started out 7 or 8 years ago and kind of grew from there. And then kind of a problem I didn't even really know I had until I ran across Quinly and took off from there.
Yeah, and I think your application is really interesting. It's not one we had seen before since we started talking to you, but it's actually um, like displays for sales, right?
Yeah, so basically, the majority of what I print right now, I don't sell to my distributors. Um, they do sell some of them to their customers once they see their displays because it does fit in the toolbox application as far as organization as well. Because you can see all the sockets we sell come on rails. Um, so the majority of the printing I do doesn't make me money right off the get go. It's the return on investment. Obviously, I get bonuses and stuff like that for meeting sales quotas. So, and I think you guys have some pictures of unorganized tool stores, the socket section. And when things are unorganized, generally people gloss over them. They don't even tend to look because they don't want to dig. But when there's bright colored items holding things in a neat, orderly fashion, it really draws the attention of the customer. And therefore usually sell 20-25% more sockets and socket rails.
So you've actually, since you've started implementing this system for organization, you've actually noticed like a market increase in the amount of sales you got.
Yeah, and it's hard to measure because we sell so many tools and it's across a wide path. It's not really just sockets that we see our commissions on. But when I'm on tool stores, I noticed that half the display is empty, whereas when I helped them build the display, it was packed full.
Mm-hmm.
And usually they're selling 3, 4, 5 extra sets of sockets a week, whereas before they didn't. And a set of sockets can run anywhere from $100 to $300 depending on what they are.
That's pretty impressive. That's actually, I think, a really good use case, because since you showed us this, also our friends over at RepRap Warehouse did something sort of similar in that they use 3D printing to create a display for filament in their store, and it's almost like it's pretty similar in that with this display that they created, they were able to put, I think, like 80 different spools of filament on a wall out in the open, so that there was more product visible to the customers, and it's kind of the same concept. If they can see more and it's all nice and orderly and organized, they're more likely to buy more or see something they like.
Yeah, it makes a good impression when you initially see very nicely organized displays of things, especially if they're obviously custom made for the product that you've got.
The last two pictures that were on your screen were the unorganized, basically pictures.
Yeah, let me pull them back up.
Yeah, actually, it would be nice to see just to get an idea of how many actual parts you printed for this. Can you just give us some numbers on sort of how many go in each truck, how many trucks you've got? Because there's a lot.
So you can see, like this picture here, there's probably 25, 30 socket rails in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be upwards of 50. So every tool store is roughly 50 to 75, depending on the size of their display. And when it's all kind of jumbled in there, it doesn't look very appealing. Now, I don't have all 27 tool trucks running this now. It's kind of their choice if they want to, and I'll provide it for them, but ultimately they have to want to set it up. So I've probably got 12 out of the 27 right now running it. And then I've also designed some other holders that you've seen with our electric tools and stuff to help display them a little bit better as well.
Do you get a lot more density out of this display as well?
I do, because of the way it's organized. They're not laying on top of each other. They're not laying sideways. So like a deep set of sockets laying sideways takes up the same space as 3 of these socket rails.
Mm-hmm. I've got a photo here of one of the other tool holders you've designed.
Yeah, so these are kind of basically just regular stand-up displays. They go onto our tool grid system, and that's kind of like you talk about prototyping. That's probably the third or fourth variation. There's probably 3 or 4 more after that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll see in probably a couple of more pictures of them on like that one right there.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the latest design, and basically what used to be there, you can see just above there, the air couplers for our air tools.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as battery technology gets stronger and stronger, air tools get less and less prevalent. Everybody's switching to battery ratchets, battery impacts, battery sanders. So as we start displaying less and less air tools, let's utilize that space for another item.
Yeah, it seems a lot more convenient to be using electric everything these days.
Yeah.
No need for the air compressor.
For sure. That's so cool. So like not only have you've basically fully implemented 3D into the types of displays that you're doing, and then it looks like it's enabled you to adapt your displays to new products more quickly than before.
Yep.
So maybe tell us, because you've had a 3D printer for quite a long time. Maybe tell us a bit like how you initially discovered 3D printing.
So probably about 6, 7 years ago, I kind of got into 3D printing. First, I got into laser engraving, and I bought a really expensive laser engraver, and basically found out that wasn't really always cracked up to be. And then I kind of started searching around for 3D printing. Most 3D printers were really expensive, but I found a a MakerBot clone on eBay for like $300.
Hmm.
And I think you guys have a picture of the my original 3D printer.
Yeah, let me just
And
pull it
one
up.
of the first things I did is enclose that because back then I printed with ABS only. So you had to mix up a slurry, which was basically ABS plastic pieces in acetone, and you smear that all over the bed and then hope it sticks.
Yeah.
I yeah, I have a lot of experience with this stuff.
That looks nasty.
It's it's also how I discovered that that half of the ABS I had bought was not actually ABS because it wasn't dissolving properly in
Oh.
acetone.
The Wild West, the
Yeah.
early days of 3D printing.
I remember this. Yeah, it was back when they, for some reason, ABS was preferred over PLA, or it was still somehow a debate. And yeah, I remember having jars. I don't know if you did this, but I had jars with different colors of ABS because the slurry would end up on your print, right? So I needed to match the slurry to the color of the print I was doing.
Oh yeah, I probably had 7 or 8 of these jars. You know, blue, green,
Yeah.
black. You can see in this one. Kind of my preferred colors. Sometimes you get it thin enough where it wouldn't get on the print, or if you print with a raft, you could peel it off.
Yeah.
But that was a whole other issue. Is printing with a raft is it was more problematic to try to get the product released. You can see the rafts on the green one right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you'd print out one of them would take about 12 hours to print, and then you'd spend about 3 hours post processing it trying to get it, cleaned up.
And what's funny is that on like big industrial ABS machines, rafts are still like the go-to way of printing.
Mm-hmm.
We had access to a dimension printer at um, UBC, at one of the local universities here, and like by default, it prints on a raft because I guess at the time it's a pretty old machine, but at the time that was the way to do it. So this was your first system.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
can
and
see.
in that box was 2 light bulbs to keep it warm because you couldn't let it cool off too fast. Otherwise, you'd start to get a lifting off the bed, and then next thing you know, you'd come home and there'd be a string of mess just everywhere.
Yeah, it also helped keep the smell in a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And we kept this one down in the basement in an extra room, kind of far away from where we live. But if you ran it for 4 or 5 days, you'd start to get a little hint of a headache, and you could kind of
You'd
know
start
it came from this.
seeing things like
ABS.
yeah, you'd hear like
Ghosts.
Joseph talking to you.
Yeah, I don't miss the days of printing with ABS.
Yeah, I remember because I unfortunately read some forum posts when I first got into printing that ABS was the way to go, and I had the printer in my bedroom, so I'd either have to evacuate the bedroom for hours while the print went, or just yeah, I don't know. That was mainly it. I just couldn't go into my own room a lot of the time, or bear the headache, and then yeah, then you have to vent it all out too after like 45 minutes to get all the smell out. Yeah, it was not super fun.
Well, and when you go to the pictures of my Ender 3s with the lac enclosures, you can see I have the one all plexiglassed in. Because when I first got the Ender 3, I was convinced I needed to use ABS, and quickly realized that PLA was a lot easier to work with.
Yeah, it's honestly perfectly fine for pretty much everything unless you're right near that transition temperature. Then ABS gets a bit better, but then you got PETG as well.
Yeah,
Other options.
There are even high temperature PLAs that
Yeah.
you can print at like 250 degrees, and they deflect heat up to 80 C, which is pretty impressive. I mean, materials have come a long way over the last 6 or 7 years. It's
Just about everything I print with right now is PLA plus.
Yeah.
right.
There's usually not much need to print ABS these days unless you're trying to smooth it. Or you need exactly what ABS provides with
Yeah,
which is
actually,
pretty good strength, but it's still hard in
you
many
do
other ways to print.
you do see that a lot when there are applications where you're like replacing a part with a 3D printed part. Sometimes they require the replacement to be printed in ABS as well.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack is saying that the raft on that I mentioned is not ABS. It's some special plastic that peels off super easy. So that's good. At least it's not ABS. Although
And it requires dual extrusion, so it's another
no, but
another step in the process.
I'll have to check because I remember that dimension machine. I thought the raft was the same material. I remember it being really hard to remove.
Yeah. Well, rafts aren't scalable. Try not to use rafts.
Yes, that's
Quinly,
true.
your life's gonna be so miserable if you have to remove like 100 rafts.
Yes. Yeah, as we've learned. So with this setup, like before you were using Quinly, what did your output look like? Because you're very busy. I don't know if you mentioned, but Jeremy's on the road like all the time. So he doesn't have a lot of time or he didn't have a lot of time to be around his printers and start them manually. So like how did your printer use look like back then?
So when I had that printer, I actually ran a tool truck, so I was home every night. But it was still set up the printer in the morning, leave for work, run my route, come back, eat dinner, maybe lucky enough to fire up a second print right before bed, and then hopefully get 2 prints out a day. If not, it was 1 print a day. And them flashlight holders that you showed, I was selling for about $20 a piece. And the demand was there, but I just couldn't keep up with it. Well, it got really overwhelming. Trying to keep up, I had 20, 30 orders at a time. Well, that's 15, 20 days worth of printing. And it just wasn't worth it. So I really scaled down what I could sell or what I could promise to people. And that was kind of what led me to buy my first Ender 3.
Yeah, that's something you never want to have to do is scale down when the demand is clearly there. So yeah, that's interesting. And then some of the numbers you gave us too, you're saying you're doing 11-hour prints and you could get 3 or 4 of these per day, like 3 or 4 of the flashlight holders per day.
Yeah, once I got both of my not my Quinlys, but both of my Ender 3s going before I even got Quinly, I could produce basically each machine could print 2 a day, so I could print 4 a day, which actually helped me ramp up from where I was, because I was printing maybe 1.5 a day, and lucky at that rate. Whereas with the 2 Ender 3 setup, I could usually print out quite a bit more, but then with the Creality glass bed that came with the machine, there still was a failure rate. There still was a issue with adhesion, stuff like that. That some days it'd print out great. It'd print fine for months, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't print fine for a week. I, chasing it down, trying to figure out what was going on, trying different bed cleaners, stuff like that. It was just a challenge.
So you ended up finding out about Quinly somehow. How did you come across us in the first place?
Well, it was during one of them weeks where I couldn't get anything to stick. I mean, I would try and it'd print a couple layers, and then all of a sudden part of it would fall off or curl up or something would happen, and come home to a big mess. And it's like, well, there's got to be a better way. So I just started researching, and I kind of ran across a YouTube video for the vapor bed, and looking at that and seeing the vapor bed, and then I watched the video that you guys had printing, I believe, little round red dots or whatever. And I thought, I really want that bed, but the only way to get it is to buy the Quinly. So I bought the whole kit. I bought a Raspberry Pi from you guys. And originally, when I got it out of the box, I just put the bed on, and I printed with that, and it was amazing. It was night and day. Everything stuck, but I still kind of stayed with what I knew and just ran 1 print here, 1 print there. When I'd be on the road, like you said, right now I'm 300 miles away from home. When I'd be on the road, I would call home, hey honey, can you go in and check the 3D printer, see if it's done? If it's done, can you kick the print off the bed and hit start again?
Yeah.
very nice of her to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if she couldn't do it, it was one of my sons too.
Yeah.
So then I decided, well, I'm always willing to learn, but I don't know much about Raspberry Pis. So that's when I reached out to the Discord group, and Jack was awesome helping me out with a bunch of different things.
Jack's here in
Get
the
that
chat.
set
You got a shout
I,
out.
I got that set up, and then I had to set up the bed leveling. Escapes my mind now. The probe,
Mm-hmm.
and I had some issues there, and Mateo and Jack both helped me out with that. I got them both set up, working great. And then that was just a whole new world there because now I could, set up and print 10 batches of 5 or 6 of these folders, and walk away, and generally I wouldn't have an issue. That's when I kind of decided, I better start integrating smart switches and cameras and even team viewers, so I can actually grab my phone right now and pull up my Quinlys that working at home, and see exactly what's going on with them. I can watch them if there's a failure. I can shut down the printer and then have my wife or my son, clear the bed, and then I can restart it from here. So it just opens up my world for more production.
Yeah, how was it the first time you ever interacted with your Quinly from like hundreds of miles away? Must have felt pretty cool, hey?
It did. We use a lot of Team Viewer with our tool trucks when we get a new guy starting out, because being on a tool truck myself, I know the software we use inside and out.
Yeah.
But our new guys don't. So the first couple weeks they're with a trainer or myself, and then after that we kind of kick the training wheels off and they're on their own. But when they have an issue, I need to be able to see what they're doing. So I'm very familiar with the remote desktop basically. But it was really cool because you get done printing 5 of this and you want to print something else, you just a couple clicks on your phone and come back 20 minutes later and see it printing on the camera.
Yeah, it's really satisfying being able to control something from so far away.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've done it a little bit too. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for the new UI and everything coming out. I think that'll be pretty cool. It'll help me interact a little bit better than I'm doing right now. Right now I have 3 or 4 programs that I got to do to interact with it, but it works really well, and there's room for improvement there.
Yeah. Actually, we just this week we started like a wider beta test, and anyone in the Discord can sign up for it. But we have 15 people testing it right now, from our Discord, and yeah, it's looking pretty good. Most of the feedback is just cosmetic stuff, so
That's really good.
it should be coming out soon, and it should, like, I mean, I know we talked to you back when I think just to get your opinion on well, like learning how you were using it and integrating that into the UI. So I'm super excited to finally be able to release it to everyone, and people will have all these features that they've been asking for such a long time, like being able to view, like, have the stream right in there, and like organize their files and that kind of thing. Send like a laundry list of jobs to the queue at once without having to do it one at a time. All of that stuff has been integrated, so it's gonna be, yeah, I'm super excited for it, and I hope that you I'll let you know once it's out, and hopefully it helps you.
The one thing I hope that made the cut, and I know I talked to you about it once before, is this room that I keep my printers in, is generally, the house is air conditioned about 72. Right now we don't have the air conditioning on because it's a very nice temperature, but this room with 2 printers running 24 hours a day, it's about 82 degrees in this room, and it does not like to cool off the bed enough to clear the bed. So I'm hoping that we put a manual, wipe the bed, so restart the printer, wipe the bed, and then start another print.
Yeah, there's that's going in, you can trigger it, but there's also, you can set a higher reset point if you want. So if you wanted to try and clear earlier, like 35C, you can actually do that right from the get-go. So that way you don't even have to like look at it and check whether it's finished or not and manually trigger it. You can set the reset point much higher if you want.
Yeah, actually, one of our customers was printing ABS that released at 50 degrees,
Yeah.
and he didn't want to wait for it to cool all the way down to room temperature. So he's going to be pretty happy now that he doesn't have to wait all this, extra time just when his parts have already fallen off.
Yeah, you can do it per job. And later we're also looking at just adding a material system so that you can have presets for different materials, that kind of thing. So that's kind of next down the line. But yeah, definitely taking a lot of the feedback to heart and actually implementing it. Like, I know today one of our devs just went through all the feedback we got so far this week. Keep in mind it's only been 3 days into this week from our beta testers and fixed and changed a whole bunch of things. So I think we're going to release in a second version of the beta tonight that's what I'm working on tonight. So yeah, all the suggestions are being listened to and are being implemented.
We might as well take this opportunity to transition into a piece of news that we've been waiting on for a little bit.
Yes. We'll give Jeremy a break after grilling him, and when we come back, we'll talk about how you scaled your operation using Quinly. But yeah, for those of you watching, you might have noticed that in the top right of the screen, there's a discount code. And that's because we're very excited to announce that the Quinly for CR10 and the Quinly for CR6 SE printers are actually now going into pre-sale, which means they're going to be available very soon.
Yeah, so it'll be a pre-sale, so they'll be shipping a few weeks after. We'll have dates on the website. But this is for the CR10 and the CR6 SE.
Yeah.
So these are two of the most requested printers that we've gotten for supporting Quinly. And so we've come up with designs for the CR10, CR10S, CR10V2, and CR10V3. And we'll be looking at more in the future, but right now that's the 4 that we support. And we additionally support the CR6 SE. And so this is one of Creality's more recent printers with built-in auto leveling and a filament sensor. And that'll all be functional with Quinly.
Yeah, and so I guess as part of the announcement, as we usually do, there's a special pre-sale price, so that'll run from today to when we actually start shipping the kits in a couple weeks. And that price for the CR10 is $50 off.
Yeah.
And then for the CR6 SE, I think it's $30 off.
$30 off, yeah.
Yeah. So, but in addition to that, which is what this code is we're just doing a store-wide $20 off coupon for the next 24 hours for anyone tuning into the stream. So if you have any friends who might be interested in trying Quinly out, we do have also Quinly for Ender 3 and Quinly for Prusa. I should say Ender 3 Pro, and Ender 3 V2, as well as the Prusa. And then this code is valid for all of those as well. Kevin says, what about the Aquila? That one is also supported under the Ender 3 kit. So yeah, that also falls under this discount. But yeah, we're super excited because I know there are a lot of print farms who run CR10s and have been asking for this. And it's a bit of an interesting process making Quinly support a printer that large.
Yeah, because some of the things that we need to print are quite big. And I know some people who have like a lot of smaller printers and then a few CR10s just to fill in for those prints that are huge. And it would be really nice to have a large printer that can be automated because you don't want half of your printers to be automated and the other half to be manual still.
Do we have photos?
We could take some photos. We could just browse the website. It should be up by
It's
now.
on the website.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so our website is shop.3dq.com. I'll just pull it up now. Sale only on shop.3dq.com. Can't access through website. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We are getting we're getting a note from staff up to the side. So it's on shop.3dq.com. That's this link down here. Oh wait, no.
No.
That's not that link.
No, someone will post it in chat. Shop.3dq.com.
We'll spam it in chat, but we'll let's pull this up. Just one.
We're doing some stream magic right here to get the website to show up.
This one, right?
Put it to the new tab. Yeah, there you go. We can go to the shop.
All right. Wow,
Cool.
look at us.
Hey, look at that.
Hey, who's that on our background video?
It's green screen. It's pretty cool. Actually, it's a yellow screen.
So if you go to shop.3dq.com, you will see Quinly for CR10, big boy, very big printer, and then also Quinly for the CR6 SE down here. So they are actually different from the one for, or the CR6 SE is actually quite different than the Ender 3. It requires different parts. And then the CR10 obviously is completely different printer.
It's got a 300 by 300 build plate. The CR6 SE, Quinly will detect it and interact with the filament sensor. So it's got that a little bit of extra functionality on it. So hopefully you guys are excited about these 2 new printers that we support. I think it'll open up some possibilities for people printing large items, for example, like props or like cosplay pieces, helmets, that kind of thing. I'd be really interested in actually, if anyone in the chat has a CR10 or prints really big things, just let us know what you print and see if we can get some chat going on.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what people use their CR10s for. And speaking of what people use Quinly for, let's bring back Jeremy and reintroduce him because we do have some new viewers. Oh yeah, one thing I should mention about this product page is there will be a lot of updates coming up with more photos, videos, that kind of thing. We've just finalized the hardware design for it, and so we'll be posting more pictures of that. The other thing is to join our Discord, because all of our staff are in there and our whole community, a few hundred people are in there. And we'll be posting like regular updates, kind of development updates as well in there. So if you want to learn more about the CR10 or the CR6 SE, I highly recommend joining the Discord. And also just to talk to the community who's already running Quinly. And a lot of people are running it for business. And there's like a lot of insight to be gained from there.
Yeah, we've got people running Etsy stores, for example, selling their 3D prints. People like Jeremy who sell their own 3D prints through different means. And a lot of really nice people. Some of them are in chat. But the Discord is a really great group. I think you guys would like to join.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's head back to Jeremy if he's here.
Yeah, see if we can get Jeremy's video back.
Oh yeah, one sec. There he is.
He has come back.
Okay, so
here we are.
We're back with Jeremy from Mako Tools, and for those of you who have just joined us or weren't here for the first part of the stream, um, Jeremy's been using 3D printing to create sales displays, and there's actually a really interesting project he started using it for now that he's managed to scale up. But he's been printing for 6 or 7 years now, and had one printer for the majority of that time. But ever since he started using Quinly to automate, he was able to run his printer while away from home and start printing hundreds of parts on the system, and actually um, and this is kind of where we left the conversation before the break. But you since automating your first printer, you've actually purchased more printers, is it right?
Yeah, currently I have two, and I'm getting ready to purchase probably my third one. And then I've got my son to actually, he decided he wanted to buy one as well, and we got that one set up with right when the DIY kit came out.
So I guess across your printers now, much how much printing have you done since you started with Quinlan, and how much printing, I guess, on a daily or weekly basis are you doing now?
I took a little bit of a break from it, probably for like the last month, but now I'm kind of back into it. I've got two new tool trucks that we outfitted. So now I've got a whole other batch of displays I need to go. And then now it's starting to pick up with my other distributors where their customers are seeing it and asking for toolbox organization for themselves. So now I'm actually selling it to the distributors at a low cost so they can turn around and, supply it to their customers and make some money off of it.
So usually, you say you're getting about 120 parts roughly per roll, and on two machines, you're doing about 240 parts off of 2 kilos of filament.
Yep, and that basically that gets me through the week. A lot of times my weeks, I leave my house probably Monday afternoon, and I'm usually back sometime Friday midday. So usually the printers run nonstop,
Mm-hmm.
and usually that is basically a full roll. I'm just like everybody else. I have 100 rolls of not enough filament to do one job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people were asking actually on the Facebook post, like how you manage filament running out.
Usually, I log in through my app that on the little Waze cameras that I have there,
Mhm.
and I monitor it probably 3, 4 times a day. And I actually have a third camera set up that is just focused on the filament itself, the spools, so I can generally tell when it's getting close. And I like to catch it before it runs out because then it saves a nozzle clog or anything like that. And I just shut down the machine. And that machine will sit there shut down until either I get back to fill the filament, switch it out, or one of my family members can do it for me.
It does sound like it might be time to look at like 2 kilogram, 5 kilogram spools, because that's what we seem to find is the best way so far, just to keep printers running for a long time.
The issue is I like colors, and I have a hard time finding the larger spools in the colors that
Oh yeah, yeah. We had some black 2 kilogram spools of PETG, and those lasted us quite a while. It's just nice.
Quite a while. It was like 5 days.
Well, 5 days.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to change spools too often.
Yeah, that was nice.
It's also cool because you don't get as many half-finished prints. Because
yeah.
we don't use filament sensors on our printers. We're here every day. But sometimes it happens where the filament runs out.
Yeah, over the weekend.
And one thing that I was doing before Quinly, and even I tried to do it after I bought Quinly, and this is where I was talking to Mateo, is I was trying to do 24 pieces on a build plate.
Right.
Yeah. And the problem is when you have a failure, you have 24 failures.
Yeah, that's
Now
not
I've got it down to where I'm doing 12 pieces, which is 6 completed, 2-piece sets. And I find that I have a lot less failures because when you spread them out that far across the build plate and the heat transfer and everything, it's more likely you're gonna have one of them break loose, and then that just creates a mess.
Yeah, like less is more with Quinly. Um, just taking a little bit more reliability uh, greatly improves like any sort of throughput.
Yeah, I think that's something that we discovered quite early on when we started using it for production, was that batching, just which is so commonplace in this industry, like batching 3D prints. That's how every 3D print farm runs. They just try to batch it, in 24-hour cycles or something. But um, batching is a direct result of the requirement for a person to be there, because all you're doing by batching is making the printer fit the operator's schedule. When you remove the operator from the equation, like with Quinly, and you look at, like, okay, what does batching actually get me other than saving me a bit of time? You see that you're using more material per run, which is bad because if your batches like don't perfectly fit to a spool because you're doing more material per print, you're more likely to have um, a batch that's 90% done when you run out of filament.
Yeah, imagine a print that takes 540 grams of material.
You could only get one per spool.
Yeah,
if your batch took
you're
that
limited
much.
by that.
The other thing that happens is, as you noticed, was that with batches, not only is your risk of failure greater, but it's your cost of failure ends up being much greater as well, because you are now, like, if you're printing 12 versus 6, there's twice as much time for something to go wrong, and there's twice as many parts that you stand to lose if something goes wrong with the batch. Whereas if you're doing 6, it's halved on in both those respects. But if you do single parts at a time, which is what we often do, um, it's even better, because sometimes what will happen is a single part might fail for whatever reason, and then the failure is not big enough to actually interfere with the printer, so the next part might actually print fine, and you don't have to worry about that. Or if it is a single part failure, it's not a big deal because you're losing like 50 grams of filament versus 300 grams of filament.
Yeah.
So it does make a big difference, and something that was pointed out as well by like we spoke about this with Ultimaker even, was they encourage their customers to print one thing at a time because the part quality and the part tolerance is much better when you have one object on the build plate. The more your nozzle is moving in a layer, especially if it's doing quick motions and like travels and retracts and seed jumps, the worse your tolerance on a part gets, and the worse the part finish gets too.
Yeah. Well, actually, one thing we've been doing recently is starting to print a lot of our parts in vase mode, for example, because you get the most smooth surfaces possible out of vase mode. And even functional parts that are part of the Quinly kit will print them in vase mode. And those print really well just one at a time, and they look really nice just because, we can get away with printing them one at a time. We don't need to batch them because we got Quinly.
Yeah, being able to use vase mode for like on a production scale has changed a lot of how we do our production. You can only do vase mode when there is a single part, but the really cool thing about vase mode is, and I want to see someone like Chep do a test on this, but I'm pretty certain that vase mode parts are actually stronger than layered parts, because you don't have a layer, like a continuous cross section for the part to break, because a vase gradually increases the line, so you're always having to break through the filament.
There's no like plane, it's actually like a spiral.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I've noticed that our parts have gotten stronger since we switched it, like the side wraps in particular. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're very hard to break.
These are also using my special maximum flow rate settings, but that actually results in really strong parts too.
All that to say that, yeah, getting rid of batching has been pretty transformative in the type of parts that we can print and how we print those parts. And it sounds like you've seen the same thing, Jeremy.
Well, and also with the vapor bed here, you can see I've changed the orientation in which I print these. They could print them are standing up on end. If you find some of the other pictures that I have, I think you have a picture of the red I'll let you know when we get to it here. Like
Oh,
that right there. I was printing them laying down, the previous one. That one there. You can see kind of in the background. They're all laying down flat.
Mm-hmm.
When I stood them up on end, it seems like I get much better results. They're a lot smoother. You don't see the layer lines. They're stronger. And also I can put them all on the bed close to the center of the bed, a lot closer with the same number of prints, and I get a lot better result out of it.
yeah, we can print some stuff that really shouldn't be printable because it has such a small footprint, and we print them so tall. Talking about the side ramps that we have on our Quinly.
Yeah, we
Um,
should. Do you want to grab one so we can show it on the
yeah,
screen?
I'll go get
For
one.
people, I mean, most of the people watching have seen it, but we actually print um, the side ramp. Well, all of the ramps in the kit are very thin parts. They're only a few millimeters thick, and we actually print them all standing up to get the best surface finish possible. And yeah, it's because of that adhesion that the vapor bed provides, that we're able to print them like that. Yeah, perfect. So I'll just switch to the main cam here.
And another one just to show the variety of parts you can print. Oh, look at that shine. That's really nice.
But yeah, these two print on the same machine. So you've got a really flat part, which is a really good example of the part release that we're able to get. And then you've got this really tall and thin part, which is printed in vase mode. And we actually print it standing up like this, which is a good demo of the adhesion that you can get when the printer's actually running. And what's super cool about it is that you can print this one and this one back to back. There's like no change in settings that you have to do in order to switch from one to the other.
Same nozzle temp, same bed temp, same first layer settings.
Yeah, and that's really key to production. Is the Quinly system is giving you a very consistent platform on which to print your parts. And so once you know your general temperatures, you can kind of throw any part at it without having to worry about too much about um, adhesion or release. Like that should be the last thing you're thinking about when creating your parts.
Yeah, actually, one thing that was cool when I was slicing Ultimaker parts, we have 24 different parts in this kit, and I use the same profile for everything, and I really just changed print orientation. Hit print, supports yes, supports no. And that was the options I really needed to change. Everything else stayed the same for 24 different parts.
And the one thing I noticed using Quinly and before Quinly is every like third print I'd have to have my wife or my son wipe down the bed with acetone or paint thinner or something like that just to get it clean.
Yeah.
Now I probably go a week or two before I have to spray it down with just a nice dish soap and wipe it down, and it's good to go.
Nice.
Yeah. That's what I do at home as well. I haven't washed my Quinly bed in like 2 weeks now, but it still works.
I have to admit that the one that's sitting in my basement, I have not cleaned for months.
4 months. This
Like,
is Mateo,
no,
the founder.
I don't clean it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting to, but it doesn't like it.
Well, if you print a lot on it, you don't touch it.
Yeah,
Then
that's
the
thing.
print will like remove all the dust,
Yeah,
and then the next one will be really clean.
that's kind of what I count on. I kind of
Yeah.
expect the print to remove any dust that was there.
We could say, yeah, Quinly printers are self-cleaning.
They're self-cleaning. That's yeah. You might get like some sparkly parts, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Um, yeah, it is definitely the whole point, the whole way the system was designed was for very low maintenance, very low interaction because and maybe we should go into this now. Your time is better spent using these parts to make more sales or um, your time's better spent designing new things and new parts. I guess one question I have would be, since you've adopted this system, how has I guess, your relationship with 3D printing changed? Like, how much time are you spending doing different things as compared to before?
I spend a little bit more of my free time designing stuff. Like everybody else, I find stuff around the house that I need to print. I just bought a new pickup. I've been researching what I can print for interior, creature comforts for that, stuff like that. And then also, kind of looking around on the tool truck, what's my next thing I'm gonna, design? Like them electric tool holders. It's what can I do to make more, more organized, do this or that. So that's kind of what I've been doing now. And also, some of my hobbies have kind of led into the 3D printing world. And now we've got a patent that's in the process of being made, and an item that I have to print out multiple prototypes and submit that to a possible purchaser of what I'm building and patenting. And it's just opening up other avenues. Maybe have a side job besides doing the district manager stuff.
Hmm.
Hey, could we tell us a little bit about the prototyping that you're doing? Like how you're using Quinly to help prototype things?
Yeah, so basically it started out as just a simple hanging out with buddies and, hey, what we did this to make this. So then I, pretty crude, and then it was like, well, how can I introduce uh, printing to build the body of what I'm trying to do? And it was a couple of buddies talking, and hey, we should patent that. And all of a sudden, I had a business partner, and he went out and he found a supplier that has a product that this would complement. So he got in touch with them. They were very interested in it, and we kind of, printed out about 5 or 6 prototypes, built them up, and gave them to him. And he goes, "Well, wouldn't it be nice if it had this instead?" So I was able to go and quickly change my design, and then print out 5 more and bring them to him. And then he goes, "I love this idea. Can you print out 15 of them?" So I built 15 of them, and now he's got them to, the end user that he usually deals with in his prototyping. And they're providing feedback. So any change requires me to print out 15 of these units, and each unit has 4 to 5 parts that are printed. So it's quite a bit of printing, quite a bit of time. And we've kind of gone down the path of when it be easier to injection mold. And we thought it would, injection molding can't be that expensive, right? We found out really quickly that just to get the mold was about $20,000 in the United States. Now you can do that in China cheaper, but we all know that if you send to China, you're probably not going to be able to keep your intellectual property. So in order to do this, we would have to do, so many pieces to make it worthwhile. And then if there is a product change somewhere in there, it just creates another problem. And then you got to get another mold, which is $20,000. So really, with the 3D printing, we're able to keep up with it a lot better.
Yeah, doing like high volume prototyping is really cool. A cool way to use Quinly. So I just from the numbers that you've given us, it seems like you've been doing um, 15 iteration or 15 prints for every iteration of this prototype, and every like part is like a 5-piece assembly. So you actually need 5 prints per unit, right?
Yep.
So how many iterations have you done so far, do you think?
From the start to now, probably about 15.
Mm-hmm.
So
Not all of them were, I didn't need 15 of them. I needed 5 for the first couple, but it's a
Right.
lot of pieces.
So that's somewhere between 1,000 and 2,500 parts that you've printed so far.
Yeah, from rough estimate, looks like about 1,000, 1,100 and 25.
That's crazy.
15 times 75 times.
How long have you been working on this?
We basically started it last, I would say, January. So it's been in the process, and by the time we decided to bring it to somebody, it was probably late February, early March. By the time we actually brought it to somebody and started doing these reprint, change this, print more, change this, print more. And then some of it's been one of the components in this design. Actually, I couldn't get anymore because of supply right now. It was have been one of the switches. So I had to change the design a little bit to fit a different style switch, which, if it was injection molded, it would have been a no go.
It would have been a $20,000 mistake.
It's not
Right.
even a mistake. It would have been completely out of your control because one of your
Yeah.
supply, and I think actually that's a really interesting point I had never thought about before, about how supply chain issues that we've seen across the world this year have actually affected product supply. Maybe not necessarily that the part itself you can't find anymore, but everything in your product is designed around this part. So if you need to switch to a differently shaped but equivalent part, you would
Yeah.
actually have to, change your housing over. Like, imagine how much of a pain it must be to do that. I bet a lot of companies just allowed their things to go out of stock rather than, if they were 3D printing an enclosure and they suddenly had to switch suppliers for uh, a button on their gizmo. If they were 3D printing the enclosure, they could just print a new enclosure to accommodate the new button, and they could have been much more robust to supply chain interruptions. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm pretty sure we've done some things like that too, because our supply chain has been very disrupted this last year. But in terms of getting Quinly kits out, we were pretty adaptable with all the parts that we print to switching over to different designs. So yeah, that's interesting. I've never actually thought about that before. That, like, molding itself limits the robustness of your supply chain, because once you have a mold, that part is set in stone, and all the parts that have to go into it are kind of set in stone as well.
Yeah. Well, there's another thing here. So, like, if you're injection molding, then you kind of have an incentive to mold more than you actually need.
Yeah.
So, if you say, "Oh, I'm gonna sell 5,000 parts in a year," you might end up injection molding 20,000 because the difference in price isn't too much. And now you've got all these parts to put somewhere and store for these 4 years where you have to sell them eventually. And then during that time, all your money's locked up in inventory rather than
Yeah.
in other things. So it's logistically not a very good solution too.
We missed a quick comment here from Bob, but he's got a CR10S Pro V2, and he said he's doing large parts or multiple parts that take a while to print. I'm curious, like, I guess, what category of parts? Is it like props? Is it aesthetics?
Yeah.
Did you get a bigger printer so that you could do bigger batches? Because that's what we seem to be seeing a lot of, especially with SLA or SLS. They just build bigger printers so you can do more parts at once, and it's like a very band-aid fix to the throughput issue 3D printing has. But
Yeah. Some people get more printers, some people get bigger printers.
yeah,
I guess with like an LCD one, it doesn't really change because it's per layer rather than per area.
kind of.
I don't know a whole lot about those though. I'm an FDM guy. Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, Kevin has a good point about Quinly. It's actually a pretty decent alternative to injection molding, but people um, might not think so just because it's like so different. But it's actually pretty competitive.
What was that thing you said? You said it's like you pay one price for any mold you ever wanted.
Yeah, Quinly is all the molds.
Like,
all the molds. You don't need one mold. You don't need two molds. It's just one mold for every part.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a white paper actually on our website now, talking about how Quinly's compatible, uh, comparable to injection molding for like small parts, medium parts, for batch sizes as high as 300,000, and that's really cool. So if you guys haven't seen it, check out the white paper section on our website.
Coming back to like, on this topic of injection molding, what was your, so you said, like, how much did your per unit cost end up being when you were looking at injection molding?
I don't recall I don't think we ever really got into the per unit cost.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd venture to say that, the 20,000 units, or the $20,000 to get the mold, and then roughly this company sells their product. They sell about 5,000 of their product every year. Now, with this being an addition, you could probably say, you might sell an additional 2,000 for people that already own their product. So we might do, maybe 7,000 a year. So you think about it, that's 3 years, just to catch up to that 20,000, because I figure it's about $1.50, $1.50 worth of filament to produce one of these units.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying for the cost of a single mold for this product you're designing, you could print 3 years worth of units if you use 3D printers, whereas that same cost would get you one injection mold and no parts.
Yeah, I would say probably, because we'd have to scale up our 3D printing, probably add 2 more printers for sure. So you're probably saying, I would say for sure 2 years worth of, printing to equal what injection molding would be.
Yeah, one injection mold
That's one part.
with no parts. Yeah, with no part.
One design injection molded.
But I think that's a really good illustration of where high volume FDM fits in the market. It is for applications like this where you are looking at selling 7,000 per year. And the really nice thing for you is that you don't have to buy all the material up front for that. You can make it in batches of what would that be, like 600 parts per month, roughly, and not have to worry about producing everything up front in one giant production run.
Yeah, like cash flow wise, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. You can just order filament on a monthly basis over the course of your whole year, whereas with injection molding, you would have to pay for the whole run up front, all the material up front, and then you just have to. Then you'd be paying for storage over the next year.
Yeah, so it's like a leap of faith, really. $20,000 leap of faith. It's nice with Quinly. Like you've done it, and a bunch of other customers of ours have done it too, where they get one Quinly, and then they get some traction, and they scale up to 2 Quinlys, and then they're like, oh, this is enough. And then after a few months, they're like, okay, I need 3 Quinlys now. You can just gradually increment, rather than having just to take a huge leap of faith into injection molding when you're not even sure it'll work out.
Yeah, and the first one, if everything goes wrong, right, and you're on an ender, the first one you're out $500 versus $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
If things go well, the first one pays for itself within about a month, and or depending on how much you're printing, it could even be a week or two, and then it pays for the next Quinly, and then you have 2 Quinlys that can pay for 2 more Quinlys in a matter of weeks too, right? Like it's if your product is in demand, like as was in your case, Jeremy, and you're able to satisfy that demand, the Quinlys end up paying for themselves very quickly, and they end up paying for more. So your production is perfectly scaling to match your demand, and every time it's so incremental. It's another Quinly system for Ender, like with an Ender 3, everything included, the pie. It's only $500 at a time, so it's very small steps to grow your business. Like it's really granular if you think about it. Like I know an injection molding line, like if you want to have an injection molding line that you control, you have the molds, you have the machine, you're not outsourcing it, it's a minimum like a $300,000 investment that you're making, unless you're doing hand injection molding, in which case
yeah, you get like desktop injection.
Yeah, what are you doing? At that point, like what are you, even that is like tens of thousands of dollars. It's just get a 3D printer.
Yeah, when you said the 3D printers will double, let's say every month, I'm just thinking. So if you let that go for a year, you get
Mhm.
12 doublings. That's a lot of Quinlys.
Yeah,
Two,
I, w-
one. It'd be like 2 to the power of 11 Quinlys. So
I think that's over a million. I think
probably.
that's like a million and a half.
If with infinite demand,
Yeah,
Quinly can scale that quickly.
I think that's a, yeah. So too bad there's not infinite demand out there,
The economists out there are like, no.
but it is like, how is it from your end, Jeremy? Is it like, is it nice to have so little risk in this new
It
product that
is,
you're working
well, and it is because, it's like I said, I took about a month off of not doing any 3D printing. And with my investment that I have, it makes it easy to do that because I don't have that big, huge overhead kind of staring me in the face, and I can walk away. I can kind of refresh myself, take a little break, do, things I love doing, go to the lake, do some fishing, stuff like that. And then I can come back and pick up right where I left off, and start designing new stuff, and prototyping is something I love to do, and the cool part about 3D printing is you print it, you measure it, you find out where you can change the tolerances or what you need to do, and you just print another one real quick.
with? Yeah, yeah. It's the the whole process. Uh, like 3D printing brought the the cost and the risk of prototyping way down. But
Mhm.
now, if you can scale 3D printing, you can scale those benefits to, um, medium and even high volume manufacturing. That's, I mean, as Steven showed, and I really, really recommend. It's a really great article that he wrote, um, for it's for an HVAC magazine, right?
HVAC and Appliance magazine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really interesting study of like, okay, how does 3D printing really scale compared to injection molding? And we found that, um, there's this part. I see some on the desk that we can. They're very small parts, but
Can you grab one?
on Quinly it costs only 6 cents, I think, to make one of them.
Yeah, they're really small.
And the problem is that even with injection molding, there is a point at which you do have to start scaling the molds too. So, um, like it's not like injection molding is just a level curve that goes down as your volume increases. It's not like what is that, like a rational function. It's there are points at which you have to invest in more equipment, um, and so your
Yeah.
part cost ends up going back up until you're using that new equipment 100% of the time.
Yeah, well, once you reach a certain volume, you need to invest in like a tool steel mold that lasts for a lot more cycles. And if you're if you're molding like even more than that, then you might invest in like a tool steel multi-cavity mold, which is a lot more complicated to make and gets a lot more expensive.
I wish we had a picture of these. It's in the
Yeah,
magazine, but it is interesting. Like,
yeah,
this part costs 6 cents to make on a 3D printer that costs $500 to buy.
yeah,
And
because it's automated too. So the part
yeah,
cost goes up by 5 times to about 30 cents per part, I think, once you add human labor into the equation.
that's insane.
So
That's so much.
automation is the future.
Good
And
quote.
that was one of the nice parts about Quinly is, before Quinly, it was either myself or my wife or my sons doing the labor, trying to keep it going. So, in an average week, you'd probably talk about, 6, 7 hours worth of labor, cleaning the machine, getting the prints off the bed, and back when I was using the glass bed, not all the prints came off super nice. You had to get there with a scraper and try to get her a corner and pop it off, and that led to frustration too. Whereas with Quimley, when it sprays the pools, it kicks off the bed, it's on to print another one. Many times it's no interaction at all week long.
It's Bob in the chat just kind of nailed it there. For small businesses, ability to change design and print on demand is a huge advantage.
Yeah, because it leaves more money in the bank to enable scaling as needed. That's a really, really good, succinct insight.
Yeah, yeah. This is it's nice to see. I've seen a few print farms recently just by researching, but um, they seem to be popping up more often now. Just someone casually drops that they've bought 3,000 rolls of filament and their warehouse in the middle of somewhere weird has actually got like 70, 80 printers in it.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a few of these just pop up online, uh, and it's really cool to see that it's actually um, being used for like real business cases.
I think something kind of unique that we're also seeing with you, Jeremy, but also with some of our other customers is uh, they're getting Quinly, and they're an advocate for 3D printing in their work, but they're not necessarily the technical person in charge of manufacturing, and they get Quinly and they start making these items for work and actually introduce it to the rest of the company. And how did, I guess, like with your experience in particular, how did that kind of thing go over? Because um, are as far as I'm aware, you're not actually involved in like the manufacturing or sourcing of the truck materials themselves, right?
Right. So yeah, the majority of our setup is basically supply, and I don't supply, obviously company wide, but I do it for my group of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it is neat to introduce it with one distributor, and our distributors have a Facebook page where they kind of all interact with each other. So a lot of this stuff actually makes it to that type of page, and then I start getting requests from other distributors asking for the same thing. That's kind of how the Streamlight display really took off in the beginning with my first 3D printer.
Yeah, it is interesting. We're seeing quite a lot of that. Like it's suddenly someone in the group or in the company is like, hey, I made this really cool thing, and I could make like 100 of them in a couple weeks for you. And then they introduce it to the rest of the people they work with, even though it's like completely from a in some cases it can be like a completely non-technical background, and just they're using it for their own purposes or as a hobby, and they just bring it in. And I think that's actually how um, 3D printing in general proliferated. But now this idea that a single person is able to like manufacture something company wide is kind of interesting to me, and we're seeing it pretty often.
Like a family member's company that he works for, um, their machinery, a lot of it is stuff made over in Germany, and they get a small part that breaks. They'll actually design something in with 3D printing and print it, solid or whatever, and it gets them by until the replacement part comes in from overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good use case too.
That multi-million-dollar piece of equipment would have sat idle for 3-4 weeks while they air freight something over from overseas.
Yeah, and I think that's also something a lot of people don't realize is like normal 3D printing. That's where it's found its sweet spot is that kind of um, low volume, high value part, in the sense that yeah, the part itself, a replacement might cost $5, but if you have a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment um, that's not doing anything, that's costing you thousands of dollars a day that it's not running. And I think the same that can be applied now with Quinly and production itself. Any sort of supply chain interruption that comes about in your production line is going to cause your line to halt. And so that's going to be a very, very expensive problem. And so what companies do is they build in a lot of local redundancy in the form of having excess inventory. But that means they have to dedicate excess space and produce excess parts. And whenever you see a supply shock, like we did many times this year, companies need to increase that overhead. They're increasing like the amount of inventory they carry, the amount of stuff they're ordering at once. And that actually, we've seen this particularly bad in the chip industry, where you have like this highly risky supply chain system and this highly risk averse manufacturing process. And so you'll end up with, whenever something weird happens in the supply chain, people will overreact to try and prevent that any lines from going down in the future. And then you end up with this kind of false demand where everyone throughout the whole supply chain is like, okay, well, if there's a shock that causes a 3-week delay, I'm going to order 3 weeks extra worth of parts now. But the problem is that shock hasn't fully resolved yet, and now there's even more demand than there was before, because everyone is thinking, well, I'm going to order 3 weeks more than I needed to in case this happens again. And so it never fully allows the supply chain to recover. And that's why we've seen, like, you would think that now, kind of 18 months or nearly 18 months into COVID, the supply issues would have resolved themselves, but they don't, because they propagate down the chains, and you have all of this excess demand and potentially false demand. Like we saw it with toilet paper.
Yeah.
There was never actually a shortage of toilet paper. The shortage was caused by this panic buying and people who are risk averse, because let's face it, nobody wants to run out of toilet paper. And then suddenly you end up with shortages because everyone thinks there's going to be a shortage, and so they buy. And that's what happens when you're using risky supply chains, when your supply is so far removed from where the consumption is happening, that there is like a large physical area for things to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and even in like the injection molding world and stuff like that, if you're a low volume producer, you know, your product might not get produced because of higher volume people needing their stuff, and usually the guy that, you know, spends the most gets it done the fastest. So if like me being a small volume person with my 7,000 units a year, and there's a guy producing 30, 40,000 a year, he's going to get, you know, bumped to the front of the line, especially with like resin shortages and stuff like that. They're going to take care of their well-paying customers before they take care of the little guy.
That's exactly, that exact pattern repeats itself in so many industries, and you're totally right. And then you end up, I think one of the interesting stats that came out was, throughout COVID, was like there was a massive concentration of wealth in very few companies, and the reason for that is that they had the advantage when it came to this getting their orders fulfilled. And actually, to add to that, like the whole false demand thing, those companies that had more resources, like the larger companies, were adding more and more to their order volumes to beat out smaller companies, or not necessarily smaller companies, but even bidding amongst themselves, saying like, well, the guy in front of me, he's going to order a million parts this year, but let me make my order bigger so that it's higher priority to the manufacturer. And so you have this like bidding happening that was just driving up the demand even further. Like they didn't really have to order twice as many parts, but if they didn't, their order might not have been fulfilled in the first place, because someone else was ahead of them. And that's what happened with like that's what's happening right now with the chip shortage. That's exactly what's happening.
You're asking for more just to get that safety net that you're actually going to get that first.
Yeah, or that your order is even going to be looked at.
Yeah.
You say, well, we'll give you more money, and we'll order twice as much as we actually need, just so that our base need can be fulfilled.
Yeah, that's not how things should work.
No, no. it demonstrates a really broken system that comes from like
Yeah.
having remote centralized production, and especially with computer chips is like a really good example because it's so centralized. Like I'm pretty sure TSMC makes something like 70% of the chips that we get here in North America, like a single company.
Mm-hmm.
But you see that with everything, not just with. I think computer chips is something that affects everyone, but you see that all over the place with any kind of high volume manufacturing. It's a big problem.
This is from Bob. Another thing he said was, I guess Bob, just a question for you. If you're running a print farm, it seems, um, but you guys said you have extra redundancy. So I guess if there's a surge in demand, then you're actually running. You have the ability to run more printers than you usually need, just to be able to meet those uh, like surges in demand. So you have about 80% capacity. Seems to be about like we run our print farm maybe at about 60-70% capacity. But if we have like a huge order or something, we could actually just put more printers into production and scale up pretty quickly just to meet that demand.
Yeah, there's like a rule of thumb that you always want to have overcapacity in your manufacturing. But the problem is the what we've seen with the supply shock and this false demand is that like the false demand grows exponentially because you have
Well, everyone's
multiple parties bidding against one another and ordering extra, whereas you are just one manufacturer. So that's an inherent issue with centralized systems like that, which is why with like we think 3D printing is going to be is the way to go for creating decentralized manufacturing networks because those are far more robust to that kind of thing. It's like you have one serving many in the traditional system, whereas with a decentralized network of 3D printing production, you have many serving many, and so it's any sort of supply shocks get dissipated really, really fast across the network.
Mm-hmm.
Bob says he's operating 4 printers currently manually.
Be interested to see what kind of printers are you working with?
Oh, he said he's got a CR10, but maybe it's a couple, a mix of a few.
Yeah, might have been a different person. I think there was another guy with a CR10.
I think. Anyway.
Oh yeah,
you're right. You're right.
No, Brian.
You are right.
Huh. Cool.
So, yeah, that was a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But an interesting one, I think.
We should probably just come back and say CR10 and CR6 still up on the store. If you're wondering what the discount code is up in the top there, it's $20 off all Quinly products on the store, and that's because we're just launched our CR10 kit and our CR6 SE kit. So just as a bit of a bonus for our launch, you can use this code in the store for the next 24 hours. Get $20 off. Yeah, hello, Justin 3D.
Jeremy, I've got a question. What kind of as you're basically making full use of your printers now. You're even looking at getting another one. Kind of what's in store for the future for your operation?
Well, that's something that I'm addressing now when I ride on tool stores is what part of the tool truck can we organize and display a little bit better with brighter color merchandising, a little better organization, kind of draw attention to. But also, it's the prototyping of possible future patents and inventions and stuff like that that maybe could bring me to the next level. Maybe as I inch closer towards retirement, probably in the next 25 years, something that I can kind of have a windfall to maybe keep this going. So I don't see myself aging out of 3D printing ever. I keep kind of keep learning with it. You guys in your Discord group is really great at keeping me moving in the right direction, and it's awesome. And I just see myself taking myself to another level, and hopefully another income source, basically.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think 3D printing does seem to be a pretty good like retirement hobby. Like I don't think I'd ever stop 3D printing after I retire. It's in the future, but you know, I'm sure by that time 3D printing will be really cool. So I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think I'm stopping this anytime
You're
soon.
saying printers will have Quinly built in, right? That's what you mean?
They'll be all Quinly, like Quinly will be
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
You won't get anything without Quinly. It'd be like driving a gas car.
Right, right.
Like, whoa, what are these guys doing?
Um, Justin says he's printing toys for Tots and he wishes he has a fleet of Quinly. We're actually planning to do something with Toys for Tots coming up on our fleet of Quinlys. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Yeah, it's actually good program. Search up Toys for Tots.
Yeah.
People 3D printing uh various toys on the 3D printers and then donating them to children in need. It's a good movement.
Yeah, we want to see how many we can get.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, we'll see if we can get our community helping out too in that.
yeah, everyone donate their excess print capacity.
Yeah. Well, I got some spools of filament that are some weird color that I don't want to use anymore. So it would be a good excuse to get those out of my house and turn it into something good.
Turn it into something useful again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't print the kits in like purple and green, but Toys for Tots could be useful.
Yeah.
Actually, I've seen some people print their DIY kits in some pretty crazy colors. Like there are a couple pink ones out there, like the not just regular pink, but really glossy pink. Um, I actually have a photo someone sent me earlier not someone, Giovanni sent me earlier this afternoon, of a massive order he did on his DIY Quinly. So just put it up here.
This one's really cool. These are stacks of prints.
Yeah, all those black things in the foreground are 3D printed. And he's just running 3 Quinlys. And he's been running them for about a month, I think.
That's pretty huge.
Or we got him running about a month ago.
Yeah.
It's a similar, I think it's a pretty similar situation to you, Jeremy, where it was like a very work specific application that he was looking at 3D printing for. Yeah, now he's done hundreds of parts.
That is a lot of parts.
That's a lot of pieces.
It's just like hundreds of pieces, maybe even thousands.
We have to find out more. I'm not actually sure what he uses.
We need some stats from this guy. How long did it take? How many kilograms? I'm always interested in this stuff.
How many parts do you think you've printed so far, Jeremy?
Overall, I bet I probably printed over probably 5,000 units of various different stuff.
And how long have you been using the system? Since June?
Yeah, so just before you guys came out with the DIY kit, probably about a month before that is when I bought my first Quinly.
That would have been April.
Yeah, April.
So April.
So yeah, probably April is when I fitted my first one, and then right after that I bought my second printer and started that one right away.
So
and as we talked about before, in some of our other live streams and even the showcase, is before Quinly, it would take me forever to print, and I probably printed, 300 units in a matter of 6 months. And now since April, I've printed the majority of everything I've printed since then.
So 300 to 5,000. That's like 15 times more printing.
Yeah, my wife is constantly seeing the boxes of filament come in and says, "Now what are you printing?"
Have you worked on securing any sort of like bulk filament supply?
I've found a few other websites that where you get a better volume buy if they buy 10 spools at a time. So I've been doing that right now. I don't want to get too many on hand because it does have a shelf life if it's not sealed properly, and kind of want to stay ahead of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. We just got a we've got a batch shipment today finally from our supplier. Um, I think 48 kilos or 32.
Yeah, it was 38, I think.
38.
Something like that. Or 40, yeah, 40 kilos.
40. And it,
Yeah.
like, the shipping was so delayed that I'm gonna have to order again in about a week
Yeah,
because we're gonna run out.
we need more filament. We actually got some really cool, like, gold colored PLA.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
Let's see what people say.
we have some ideas for it.
They sent us specific files to print link. Oh, Justin's talking about the Toys for Tots program.
I wonder if it's that particular octopus. There's that one octopus that everyone prints.
I think so. I think I've seen it on their website.
Yeah, that's a really cool print. I should do one myself.
Anyway, it's coming up on 6 here. So I think maybe to give anyone who's just joining us late a bit of a recap, but Jeremy's been using Quinly for a little while now, since April. Yeah, but he's been 3D printing for
6 or 7 years.
6 or 7 years now. And he was using it to basically organize the product displays in sales trucks. So this is what they looked like before, and then once he got them all neat and tidy. I guess you can see it in your background there, Jeremy. Looks much better. Actually saw an increase in sales because everything was so much more nicely organized. And since April, he's printed nearly 5,000 parts on the system, a lot of which were actually prototypes for a new product that he's working on that's top secret. And you've gotten a second printer, your son's got a printer, and you're looking at potentially getting another one as you continue to scale up, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and you've been running them for like 24/7 while you're away from home during the week, which is really cool. And remote controlling.
So like when I left on Monday, I set my printers up to run 10 batches a piece. So each batch is what was it, 12 pieces. So it's it'll probably sometime tomorrow afternoon. It'll probably batch out. I'll be done. I'll have to either I'll run out of filament, or I will have to restart them, which I can do remotely, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just the way that we like to see Quinly being used. It's really nice that you've got this whole setup working really so well. It'd be exciting to see how this goes for you in the future with your prototypes, and what other ideas you got bouncing around. I'm sure Quinly can help with that too.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back on. It's been awesome seeing the progression, and I think as you mentioned, like getting back into 3D printing more seriously, because now you're not spending so much time running the machines themselves, I think is really exciting. I think a lot of people have sort of become disenchanted with 3D printing over time. Even Buzz, we had on previously, was mentioning that he runs a 3D print store, yet he almost never uses his 3D printers because he just doesn't have the time to. And with something like Quinly, myself included, I started using my printer way more, just because I don't have to be there to run it.
Yeah, and I've seen the same thing. Fallen back in love with 3D printing. It's great. Quinly repaired my relationship.
It's fun. Yeah, repair your relationship.
Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier, it's now I'm keeping up with production demands with just my two printers. So when somebody requests 25 of these deals, within a couple of days I can have them 25. Whereas with my one printer before, my very first printer, You know, if I had 6 people that wanted a flashlight holder, it was 6, 7 days.
Yeah.
And so then you're basically, you know, okay, I can do it, but give me 3 weeks. You know,
Yeah.
you're really limiting yourself, and then you're lowering expectations, and then therefore your customers don't expect much from you, and they don't come back for more.
And I think, yeah, I think that's maybe could even be a reason that a lot of people have soured on 3D printing, just because it's too slow, and then if you want to rush things, the part quality isn't very good. So I totally see that. I totally understand that.
Yeah, we don't like manual 3D printing on a deadline. We've both done it before. It's
No.
stressful.
It's like one of the most stressful things you can do. Just, yeah, nightmares turning up the extrusion speed like to 140% just so it finishes before you have to leave.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, well, we'll definitely have to check in with you again in another couple months, because it seems like every month or so, or every 2 months, you are doing something like way bigger and completely different, which is, uh, I mean, one of my favorite parts about hearing from you. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with everyone, and hopefully uh, we'll be around to continue supporting it, implementing your feedback, and hopefully making the system work far better for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jeremy, it was nice talking to you today. A lot of great
Yeah,
insights.
thank you, and hopefully next time my top secret project won't be top secret anymore.
Yes, yes, that's gonna be super cool. I hope we get to share that on here as well in the future.
We want to show big bins full of your parts.
Yeah.
Be cool to show some store shelves with it on there, right?
Yeah, yeah, showing it like in retail. Oh, that's the dream. I want to see printed parts on retail stores, or in use in the wild. Um, yeah, again, thanks so much. It was a pleasure to have you on. Um, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Goodbye to Jeremy.
Bye-bye, Jeremy. And so just as we wrap up here, Steph said she wants to know the secret. As we wrap up here, we should mention again, we've launched the CR10 and the CR6 SC printers for pre-sale on our site. There's a special discount, $50 off the CR10 and 30 off the CR6 SE. Those prices will be valid throughout the duration of the pre-sale, so for the next couple of weeks until we start shipping those kits. And additionally, we've got this coupon code here, $20 off of any order in the next 24 hours. So if you're interested in getting Quinly, or you know somebody who might be, definitely share the stream with them. Tell them to join our Discord to learn from people who are already using it, and yeah, give them this discount code. It might be a really nice way of getting into the system.
Yeah,
into the Quinly ecosystem.
Ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to keep talking to us, or find out some development going on behind the scenes, definitely recommend joining the Discord, because there's always chatter going on in there, and you can talk to people like Jeremy who have been operating like very successful manufacturing operations using 3D printing, using Quinly. Yeah, there's a lot of good there are a lot of good brains to pick in the Discord.
Yeah, definitely some experts in there. And you can ask questions about starting your small 3D printing business, or even just scaling up what you've already got going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're definitely going to be bringing more of them on the stream, and bringing Jeremy back in the future. So stay tuned for that as well. Like if you're more into the streams or the videos, definitely subscribe here on YouTube, and obviously give the stream a like, because that helps show other people. But yeah,
subscribe as well. stay updated for future streams.
Yeah, and then next week we've also got a stream, same time, Wednesday evening.
Yep.
It's gonna be pretty exciting.
Yeah. You guys are gonna like this one.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna tell you what it is yet though.
No, it's top secret. But that generally means something
cool.
Some big announcement.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Oh wait, will you run the code, say again, next month when I have the money? Well, there might be a different code next month, so just...
I think we're launching something else next month, so
I think.
Maybe, but
I think.
There's stuff in the works. So
yeah, just stay tuned.
There'll be more codes.
There will be more codes. All right, well, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.